GOP polling is in free fall, not just because Donald Trump has declared war on Jesus, but also because of the tariffs hitting rural farmers, the Iran war dragging up prices. We're now seeing Republicans shifting away from their candidates in places like Ohio, Iowa, North Carolina, even Florida, where the race for governor is tied. When is the last time we've seen a Democrat tied for anything in Florida? The Cook Political Report moving 4 Senate races to the left in just the last week. And with Donald Trump losing about 1 point per week in approval, if that keeps up, he'll go into the midterms as the most unpopular president in modern history. I mean, Peter, is there any way that he gets out of this?
I don't see it. Genuinely, I don't. And I'll add one other factoid to that great list you railed off, Max. So the Q1 FEC filings, I think, were just released this past week. Currently, and I'm only looking at Senate races, the figures I have before me, the two that I find most interesting in terms of cash on hand, Tallarico currently has, or sorry, not cash on hand. This is money raised, I believe, in just Q1. Tallarico raised $27.1 million compared to Cornyn's $2.7 million and Paxton's $1.7. If Cornyn is ultimately the GOP nominee, Tallarico is literally outraising him 10-1. And I know that I don't want to play Captain Ahab. I know that Texas is our white whale that we'll probably never chase. But like, if there were ever the perfect environment for a persuasion-coded candidate like Tallarico, who drapes himself in religion, I think earnestly, this is the time for him to win. And I think he's now set up to at least run down that runway and try. Yeah. And then secondly, I wanted to also raise in Georgia, Jon Ossoff, who a year ago we thought could be potentially in danger. He just raised $13.8 million compared to, he's got 3 different opponents currently jockeying in the GOP right now. Mike Collins is believed to be the one who's ultimately going to face him in the general. Collins raised $1 million. Over 10-1, 13.8 to $1 million. It's insane.
And you talk about fundraising. I mean, Republicans just last week announced this $350 million Senate national campaign. That now looks like it's in tatters. I mean, Republican leaders now are saying they may have to spend on 6 additional Senate races. I mean, there's been a lot of anxiety in the Democratic Party that Democrats are not raising as much nationally as Republicans. But now Republicans are going to have to spend almost twice as much as they thought they were going to have to spend on races they didn't think were a problem. Ohio governor, Iowa governor Rob Sand running there even with and even a point ahead of his Republican opponent. I mean, what does this say about how voters see Democrats as candidates versus their sort of negative view of the party nationally?
That's a great question, Max, because I've been thinking about this a lot too. Despite the fact that Donald Trump is tripping over his own dick at every turn, and Republicans are just a cabal of fascist clowns at this point, the Democratic Party, if I'm not mistaken, still is actually more unpopular than the GOP. And I've wrestled with that for a long time. And given these numbers, I am now more sold to the idea that actually, yes, the Democratic Party brand needs to think long and hard about what mistakes it's made over the last decade, 2 decades or so, what given slogans or cultural movements they may or may not have tied themselves to so closely. But I actually think their numbers are so low, not because everyone hates Democrats, but because they have not fought hard enough. And that a great deal of those negativity percentages are just coming from folks who are looking at the Dems and saying, look at my party dog, I'm going to jail. They need to fight harder. They need to speak to the urgency of the moment. They also need to just communicate like real people. When is the last time prior to this cycle? I'm looking to people, maybe Tallarico is not the best example, but like I have some qualms about him, but Graham Plattner talks like a regular person. Abdul El Sayed in Michigan talks like a regular person. You raised Rob Sand a second ago. He talks like a regular person. I'll be the first to confess, I am not on AARP. I have not been studying politics nearly as long as a lot of folks. I cannot remember a time in my short lifetime the Democrats have actually sounded real. And authenticity is finally now, I think, breaking through the party. And that, I think, is so key and so important in this moment.